So let's talk about the initial verification process. The first obvious question is, how do I establish the sample pool? The sample pool uses the total number of approved applications on file as of October the 2nd of the current school year. LEAs may choose not to count applications for students in split session kindergarten programs participating in the special milk program when determining the verification sample pool. The sample pool depends on the number of applications, whether paper or electronic, and is not based on the number of children eligible, but is based on the number of applications. And also mixed household applications, which are other source categorical and income applications, are included in the sample size. Are included in the sample pool. So how do I establish the sample size? After you have determined your sample pool, which is the total number of applications that's approved as of October 2nd, then you will decide your sample size. To do this, the SFA calculates the sample size. You always round up. So for example, if you have 3,125 applications approved as of October the 2nd, and we are multiplying it times 3%, let's say we're using the standard method, and we'll talk further about the method shortly, that equals 93.75. Since we always round up, then the number of applications that are part of the sample size is 94 applications. If you have a low number of applications due to being a smaller district or a charter school, which means maybe you have 25 applications and 3% of that is 0.75, then you still have to round up because at least one application must be verified. With the exception of verification for calls, the SFA must verify the exact number required, not more and not less. If you do more, that's considered over-verifying, and you do less, that is considered under-verifying, and that will result in a corrective action plan. You should never verify 100% of the applications. And also, please make sure that you realize that verification for calls is done in addition to the required sample size. An SFA may do verification for calls at any point in time during the school year, and you want to make sure that you document because we will request this information as a part of the verification summary report. So we're going to talk about application selection procedures. You should have received your verification method from your area consultants in the spring of 2023. Your options are standard or alternate, and the alternate is either 1 or 2. The SFA uses this information in the electronic application, and you used it, to complete question number 54 in the SFA section. So if you are a new SN administrator, and maybe you weren't here during the agreement process or you were out, someone else completed it on your behalf, then we encourage you to go and look at which verification method your school district or school is supposed to use during the 23-24 school year. If you still can't find it or you're unsure, then please reach out to your area consultant, or you can also contact me. There are 3 methods when it comes to verification methods, and these methods are what we use to determine our sample size. The 3 methods are standard, alternate 1, or alternate 2. Let's talk about the standard sample size for the verification method. Standard requires that you verify the lesser of 3% of all applications approved as of October 2nd, and this will be applications that are selected from your error-prone applications for the school year. So the lesser of 3% or 3,000 for the school year, these are error-prone applications. So again, as you were doing your applications at the beginning of the school year, you were highlighting or marking off or separating the applications that were error prone, which means that the income falls within $100 monthly of the income eligibility guidelines, or the income falls within $1,200 annually of the income eligibility guidelines. If there are not enough error-prone applications on file, the remainder of the applications verified are selected randomly from all applications subject to verification. So we'll talk about this a little bit further shortly. So let me give you an example for the standard verification method. So let's say we have 245 applications that are approved as of October the 2nd. This These are the applications on file. It does not include these direct certification applications. It does not include applications that have homeless students, migrant, runaway, Head Start, and foster students on the application. So we take 3% of 245, and this is just basic math multiplication, and the total would be 7.35. Because we always round up, the number of applications to be verified is 8. Let's say that out of these applications, 50 of those are error prone. That means you select the 8 applications out of the 50 error prone applications randomly. So this is the first example for standard verification method. Here's a second example. Let's say we have the same number. Well, let's change the number to, we have 135 applications approved on file as of October the 2nd. 3% of 135 would be 4.05. So the number to verify, we do round up, and the number to verify is 5 applications. Let's say that 3 applications make up the error-prone sample because they fall within $100 of the monthly guidelines. So you take those 3 error-prone applications and then you randomly select 2 more applications from the other applications on file. This is known as completing the sample size. If the SFA is using a software program, generally the error-prone application selection is in the programming part of the software. But if you're an SFA that's doing this manually, a good way to do this is to mark them again as you're doing the applications at the beginning of the school year. And that way you won't have to kind of go back through them to find. So we have the 2 examples, example 1, example 2, both for standard, but the difference is what happens if you don't have enough error-prone applications. And then if you do, for the first example, you just take from those applications. However, if you don't, then you take all the error-prone applications and then you randomly select the remaining number of applications that you need. Our next verification method is alternate 1. If the SFA has the opportunity to elect alternate 1, then they must verify the lesser of 3,000 applications selected at random from the applications that are approved as of October 2nd. The lesser of 3,000 applications or 3% of all approved applications selected at random as of October 2nd of the school year. So that means when we say at random, that means that once the sample size is determined, then all applications are selected at random. So that's the difference with alternate 1 sample size. So let's do an example. We have 2,005 applications on file. 3% of that is 60.15. The number of applications to verify, we have to round up, is I'm sorry, you all have 2 different numbers on here, but let's just say, just disregard the written part and let's just look at the example. I'll go back through it again. 2,005 applications on file. 3% of that is 60.15. We round up, and that means that 61 applications have to be verified, and these are chosen at random from the applications on file. And lastly, we're going to do an example of alternate 2. Now this involves just a little bit more math. So what we have is the method for alternate 2 is you choose the lesser of the sum of 1,000 applications approved as of October 2nd or 1% of all applications approved as of October 2nd. You calculate that and then you add the lesser of 500 or 0.5% of all applications approved as of October 2nd that provided a case number. So this involves, again, just a little bit more math, but you're going to take the lesser of the sum, either 1,000 of all applications or 1% of all applications, and you're going to add that to either the lesser of 500 or 0.5% of all applications approved as of October 2nd that provided a case number. So let's look at an example. The SFA has 1,500 approved free and reduced applications on file. And remember, this includes those with case numbers, as is all approved applications. 1% of 1,500 would be 15. So the number to verify is 15 applications, and we're going to select those 15 applications from error-prone applications. And then we put those to the side and we calculate 0.5% of 102 applications, which indicates 0.51. We round up to one application. We add the 15 applications on the first column to the one application on the second column, and it indicates that we have 16 applications to verify. We talked about earlier how to complete the sample size, so we're just going to go through that really quickly. For sample sizes based on error-prone applications, there may not be enough applications to meet the criteria. When this happens, the SFA must select at random additional approved applications to complete the required sample size. If you look back a couple of slides, example 2 for the standard verification method, you saw how we had to randomly select 2 applications to complete the verification sample size because we didn't have enough. There were only 3 error prone and we needed 5, so we picked 2 more randomly. In other situations, the number of error-prone applications may exceed the required sample size, so when this happens, the SFA must randomly select the required number of applications from all error-prone applications. So you may have a question about how does an SFA qualify to use an alternate sample size? Well, the way to qualify is to either have a lowered non-response rate or to have an improved non-response rate. When we say lowered non-response rate, that means that the second year that that the second year from the preceding year, your non-response rate is less than 20%. Okay, so that means you can choose an alternate sample size if you look back to the preceding year and your non-response rate is less than 20%, and you receive your non-response rates when you get your verification method. So you'll know whether or not you qualify because of a lowered non-response rate. Or you may have improved your non-response rate. For example, an SFA that has 20,000 more than 20,000 children may choose an alternate sample size method if their non-response rate for the second year is 10% below the non-response rate for the first year. And so I'm going to give you a quick example of what that looks like. So this is what, if you can qualify for one because you have an improved non-response rate. Year 1, your non-response rate was 25%, and just look at the breakdown of why it's 25%. But year 2, you improve your non-response rate and you dropped it down to 22.2%. You improved it by 10%, which means that you can qualify for an alternate sample size. So those are the 2 ways that you can qualify for an alternate sample size. Again, you can have a non-response rate under 20%, or you can have an improvement by 10%. And if you look at the calculations here, you can see exactly what I mean. All right before we proceed with verifying the sample size, we have 2 things that we must do before we send a selection letter to the household. We want to make sure we've done our required confirmation reviews. In North Carolina, that's a requirement. There is not a waiver to not do the confirmation reviews. And the second thing is you have an option to replace a certain number of applications, and that's up to 5% if the situation warrants you to do so. And I'll give you an example of that shortly. Okay, so what is a confirmation review? Well, prior to verification of any selected application, a person known as the confirming official, and this is other than the determining official of the application, must confirm that the eligibility status of application selected for verification was approved correctly. And again, this is someone other than the person that made the initial determination. This person must initial or sign the selected application prior to mailing the selection letters. And if this process is taking place at the beginning of the school year when the applications are being processed, it is still important for the confirming official to initial or sign the application or the batch file. So you want to make sure that confirming official make sure they notate that they did review it before it went to the household. In North Carolina, all SFAs are conducting the second review of applications. So as a reminder, make sure that you sign off on this document. We use this term second review of applications and independent review of applications interchangeably, but it's the same process. Don't forget to look at the application one last time to ensure the eligibility determination is correct prior to sending the household the verification selection letter. The second process that we mentioned that we do right before we send the letters is replacing the application if it is necessary. This is a good time to look to see if a student has withdrawn from school. If the student has withdrawn, then the SFA should select an application to replace the withdrawn application with the light application, which means if it's an income application, then you want to replace it with the income application. If it's a categorical eligibility application, then you want to replace it with a light application. Now, this is when you may possibly need to ask for more time. Let's say that it is one day left before verification concludes. It's November 14th, and the SFA finds out that the student has withdrawn. They didn't respond because the student is no longer at the school. What do? You reach out to the state agency. You can send me an email, give me a phone call, and request an extension past the 15th of November, and then you verify another light application. So when can an SFA replace an application? In that situation that I just gave you, a student withdrew, you want to replace it with a light application. Um, Also, if you believe that you will be unable to satisfactorily respond to the request, or the household it will not be able to respond, then you may be able to replace that application as well. The application removed should be replaced with the light application, and the confirmation process must take place on the replaced application. All right? So those are the two things that we do right before we send out the verification selection letter. The SFA must send a letter informing the household of selection and of the types of information acceptable to the SFA. You want to retain a copy of these letters in the verification file, as some software systems regenerate letters with the date of regeneration and not the actual date the letter was previously mailed. By this point in the school year, all letters have been approved or should have been approved by the state agency. So the verification selection letter should contain the following elements. You want to let them know that their household was selected for verification. You're providing them with the types of acceptable information that they can provide to confirm their current income, which includes pay stubs, award letters, or support payment decrees from courts. You want to let them know that they can also may be able to provide proof that a child or any household member is receiving benefits under the assistance program instead of providing income information, or they can provide proof that a child is other source categorically eligible, that the documentation or income or receipt of assistance may be provided for any point in time between the month prior to application and the time the household is required to provide income documentation. You're also letting them know that the information must be provided by a date that's specified in the letter, and that failure to do so will result in termination of benefits. Give them the name of an official who they can call if they have questions, who can provide assistance, and then you want to make sure that there is a no cost to the household telephone number. So all of these things are provided as a part of the verification selection letter. Once a school becomes aware of a language need, the school is responsible for ensuring the individual's application and other household materials that can be letter, instruction, notices, and verification materials. This information should be provided in an understandable language. Simply offering the most common non-English language is not sufficient. LEAs may use the translated application materials available through FNS to ensure households comprised of LEP individuals have access to free and reduced price application materials in a language they can understand. And if you need further information, you want to see SP 37-2016, which talks about meaningful access for persons with limited English proficiency in the school meals program. It is guidance as well as a question and answer section.